So thank you for attending this parallel session. I'm Jake Green, a research and survey officer. I'll be hosting this today. Thank you for attending. Before I introduce our speakers, please ensure that you've got your microphones muted and your cameras turned off. If you'd like to ask a question, please type into the chat function. And myself and Jacob will be looking after that and organising the chat at the end, asking you to unmute and ask your question again to the participants. So if you have any IT difficulties, please leave and rejoin the meeting. And also a reminder that we're recording this session. So without further ado, we're delighted to welcome Martin Farley, Sustainable Labs Advisor at UCL, Jan Brett, Technical Development and Planning Officer at the University of Liverpool, and Joe Brown, Technical Assistant at Edinburgh Napier, for their presentation on the LEAF NTDC pilot project. So without further ado, I'll pass on to all of the people presenting, and enjoy.
Thanks for that introduction. Good morning, everybody. Almost afternoon. I'm going to give you guys a quick little introduction to this and hand it over to the folks that are doing the hard work. I just wanted to set the scene for why we're looking at LEAF and what we're doing and why we're doing this all, and what we're doing with the NTDC. Just go to the next slide if possible. LEAF essentially is a standard in sustainable lab operations, and the reason that we're doing this is that you'll probably all have heard in the news a lot of discussion around net zero, and it's being discussed whether it's at the government level or at your local institution, or just even the actions that we take in day to day. And obviously, net zero is about net zero emissions, and there's different definitions, of course, a little bit. But overall, I wanted to put up these targets because it shows a cascade from where we're starting, which is the UK has put a net zero target for 2050. Then the largest funder, UKRI, has put another net zero target for 2040. And I would really encourage people to go check out that policy, to just have a look at what UKRI is sort of planning, because there's a lot of thoughts about how they're going to affect the widening funding world and to make it more sustainable. And I will say too, is I think it's an exciting time to be working around sustainability in the UK in respect, because I don't think any other major funder has made an announcement that bold. And so it's kudos to them for doing that. Equally within our institutions, as I mentioned, we have these net zero targets, and there's different ones and different targets I know for a lot of our institutions. And it's fantastic that we all have these targets. But I think the challenge becomes, how do we get there? If you could just do next slide, please. Thank you, Jacob. How do we get there? I recognize too that net zero, obviously it's going to affect a lot of aspects of how we function in terms of how we construct buildings and et cetera, how we function in spaces. But the area that we're talking about and focusing on is our operations of labs. Labs are very resource intensive spaces. They use a lot of materials and energy and plastics and et cetera. And they're specialist environments. You're doing different things in labs, which makes approaching sustainability in these spaces challenging. So we're arguing that to make this more easily accessible and to standardize it, we can put it into sustainability standards. And I've given the examples of health and safety and Athena Swan. And I like the health and safety example because I think that's kind of what we're trying to do with LEAF. When you think about health and safety, there's a director at each one of your institutions, but typically you're not audited by somebody externally. There's a culture of safety that's built within your institution where you assess each other, you understand what you're working towards, and there's a standard that you're all aiming to meet that standard. That's what we're trying to do with LEAF. We're trying to create a standard where you can all build a culture of sustainability internally and locally, and not necessarily rely on external people. But I think it's best built when you work on these things together at your site and you build that culture. Next slide, please. So essentially, that's what we're trying to do. We've built this tool, which is called LEAF. And the reason as well that we built LEAF is that we wanted something that somebody in a lab could pick up and immediately understand and just hit the ground running. We didn't, I didn't want people to spend time trying to differentiate what it meant or come up with what they should be doing. We wanted to leave some scope for users to decide how they want to implement it, but we want to give targets so people can just really, get cracking and also go on with the rest of your busy jobs. Because I know that sustainability really isn't the #1 task for everybody. Everybody's got to balance a lot of different tasks. LEAF contains criteria in these different areas, as you saw. There's bronze, silver, gold criteria. It's a user-led initiative, and there's calculators. Last slide, if possible. I went on for an extra minute than usual, I have to say. I'm happy to say LEAF is now essentially the largest certification in the world. It's grown very quickly since we launched it online in this space. So we have, I think it's actually 48 institutions now signed up, which is great. And we've had some international sites. We have a lot of sites around the UK where it's mostly based. And kudos to Bristol for using LEAF and being the #1, getting it in all of their labs across the institution. With this pilot, the NTDC has been fantastic because we're launching this. We launched this pilot to understand technicians are really at the forefront of making labs sustainable. And we wanted to work with the NTDC to ensure that LEAF is the correct tool to help people in this regard, but equally to understand what resources are needed to assist technicians in the future. So this pilot that we're doing with some of the folks that you're going to hear about now, it's to understand how we can make this process as streamlined and impactful as possible, but equally so we can understand what resources and tools you need to make your facilities as sustainable to achieve that and build that culture locally. That is enough for me. You're going to hear from two fine folks, Jan and Joe, to hear about their experience of setting it up. And thank you very much for NTDC and them both. I'll hand over to Jan now, I think.
Okay, thanks very much, Martin. So good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to give a quick update from Liverpool today. My name's Jan Brett and I sit in the Technology, Infrastructure and Environment Directorate, which is a facilitating part of the Faculty of Health and Life Sciences here at Liverpool. Our head of operations is Dr. Chris French. Chris also sits on our University Sustainability Board. So next slide, please. This is just some facts and stats around our university. We were founded 140 years ago. We have around 30,000 students, 6,000 staff, of which at last count, 672 are technical staff. So we are a pretty large institution, a key employer of the area. So any work we can do around sustainability could really help. Next slide, please. So I won't read this out, but this is the mission statement of our University Sustainability Board and the strategy. And it's just evidence that it is something our institution is taking seriously and hoping to drive forward. So next slide, please. This slide shows that in April this year, Liverpool entered into the Times Higher Education Impact Ratings, which measures sustainability in universities. We were placed in the top 80 of those measured, and our results sit in the top 7% globally. But we need to do more, and we want to do more. So when we look at the area of labs, what we found is that we have pockets of best practice around green initiatives and sustainability in the labs, driven by keen individuals, but with little sharing of best practice or even promotion of this valuable work. So Chris wanted to coordinate this better through our directorate and tasked me with running a pilot programme where we looked at using the LEAF framework in our faculty. Next slide, please. So we put a call around Faculty of Health and Life Sciences for staff to join the pilot, and we had responses from both academic and technical colleagues. So we now have 14 different lab areas undertaking this pilot and the benchmarking exercise, and we're working towards bronze initially. But word has got out, and this has expanded to include other areas of the university, including the Faculty of Science and Engineering. So we've been meeting on teams to work collectively towards this goal, sharing tips and best practice along the way, and helping to audit each other's areas, like Martin said earlier. So we've really found the benefits of working towards the LEAF framework in that it's a really clear set of standardized instructions, and it's really easy to do. So we've recently submitted an interim report on this pilot to our sustainability board, which has been really well received. And it's also fantastic to note that this work can support the NTDC pilot described earlier. We'd like to thank the NTDC for inviting us to be part of their work, and we're looking forward to help shape recommendations around how technicians can be developed as well. So if we just move on to the last slide from me. We've had 2 Bronze Award successes to date from 2 of our different research institutes. On the left, we have Jenna Lowe, who's one of our technicians in the Institute of Infection, Veterinary and Ecological Sciences. And on the right, we have Dr. Anoa Mielga and Technical Supervisor Gregor Govan in the Department of Molecular and Clinical Cancer Medicine. And they're all really chuffed to have, and rightly so, to have received their Bronze Awards. And I know that I've got another 2 that are being submitted this week. So that's all from Liverpool. We're now going to go north of the border to Edinburgh, and over to you, Joe. Thank you. Joe on mute.
Fortunately, it looks like Joe might be having some technical difficulties with her internet connection.
Hello, hi, can you hear me? I'm just disappearing every few seconds. It's really frustrating. I think I can't get my camera either, so I'll start. I'll have a go, but it's quite likely I'll be cut off.
Oh, that was bad timing.
So much for technology. I'm sitting in front of all this technology here and I can't use anything. Do you think I should carry on, or it's just cutting out every couple of minutes?
If maybe we push forward, and if you cut out, maybe we'll move to if there's any questions. Jake, what do you think?
Yeah, that sounds great. So if you go for it, Joe, and
okay.
if you do cut out, then we'll have a discussion and some questions. But yeah, no worries if things do fall out. These things happen, don't they? Yeah, I'm afraid with perfect timing, that might be Joe dropping out as well. So looking at the chat, no one's put a question yet, but I have a couple from a couple of the things that you've mentioned, and the main one is, I think if people are here, how do people get involved with LEAF, and yeah, what can technical staff on the ground do to begin that process of change and make a difference? I don't know if you want to speak, Martin, and then Jan, about your experiences.
Sure. It's true. I just want to say as well is that at Napier they've done a really fantastic job. I know that Joe's his connection is cutting off, but I did think it's just kudos to them, because they've done a really good job at engaging from the ground up. If people would like to get involved, then sorry for the sirens, but essentially just get in touch really. Typically what I offer is a short Zoom where I can show people what it looks like and how it works, and take through the procedures and to give some examples. When people sign up, I typically offer a short workshop with the users, albeit if people want to deliver that themselves, they're always welcome to if they want to engage locally, and we can share the slides. So yeah, that's a very short outline of how to get involved right now.
Okay, thank you very much. We've also had a question from Ross Dymock. Ross, if you just want to unmute and ask that question to the panel.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Yeah, I was just wondering if Martin, if you could explain a bit more about the assessment process. So at Glasgow, where I work, we're in the middle of having a pilot scheme put together, about 6 labs that are going to be submitting applications for bronze awards. Now, I realise it's an internal process, but I wonder if you could speak a bit about how the selection process could work for who should be on the assessment panel, and just basically what kind of things they should really be looking for when they're making those assessments.
Sure, yeah. So this is kind of when I mentioned before about building that culture locally. I think this is a good example of that, because when one of the things we provide from LEAF is a guide that gives you a pass-fail for each criteria. But you're right, people need to assess those criteria internally. And the things to look for, I think, are is it business as usual? Are people pushing themselves to do the this might be I don't mean this in a bad way, but are people using safety as a reason sometimes to not take action? I think can come up. You know, sometimes people don't want to introduce recycling in CL level 2 labs because of safety. And there are some examples where people, I think it's about having that discussion. So if people give a generic answer sometimes when you're assessing, I think it's good to start that discussion. So for example, there's a criteria about, is there a space for negative results to be discussed and errors to be discussed in a lab? People often will fill that out and say, we have lab meetings, which is true. People do have lab meetings to discuss issues, but they're not required to, maybe I'm going into too much detail, but they're not required in that sense to discuss what went wrong. So it's, when you're assessing criteria, it's about starting a discussion whether what people have told you is, if they're just describing business as usual, or whether they've challenged themselves to go and to consider a sustainability solution for their setting. Does that give a good idea, Ross?
Yeah, you know, that's great. Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea. Obviously just wanting to engage with people and start discussions. I think obviously it's important to try and assess if people are just coasting, or if they are, as you say, trying to really engage and make a positive impact. So no, that's great. Thanks for your answer.
Great.
Can I just add something there as well? I think it's really down to your institution, how you use the tool and take it forward. So when Liverpool took it on, I am designated as admin. So I could go around and audit, or we can audit collectively. It's really how you want to take it forward in each individual space and what's best for you. When we've been auditing our bronze award submissions, there is a category in silver that you have taken part in an audit. So we're inviting that out to the whole of our pilot team to come round each time. So it's really a collaborative discussion. It's not, you know, black yes, no answer. We're all trying to help each other get through this. And if you look at the categories for the bronze award, you're looking at things like waste, equipment, and a lot of it we've found is we're doing already. It's coming under good lab practice. So it's just a case of maybe formalizing that, putting some really good signs about segregating waste up, that kind of thing. So it's not hugely impossible to go for the bronze award, I think, what we found.
Thanks, Jan, for adding that. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Trying to encourage members of all the participating labs to come round and see what everyone else is doing, and build up their knowledge, I guess, and it helps with future assessment. So yeah, I think that's a good idea.
And I think it's really useful. The technicians have to be involved, whether they are the ones that are running the sustainability assessments, but they need to be involved because they understand about, you know, where and when they get the equipment serviced. Is it done annually? And these are the sort of topics that you're looking at, certainly, to go for bronze. So yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that question, Ross. I think In terms of, I guess we've got the overall view of Leaf from Martin and the individual case study with Jan as well. So I guess more about your experiences. I think what are your both of your proudest achievements with the scheme to date, and then another question that we've had in is what do you think the biggest barriers are in HE to making this sort of move to further sustainability? So yeah, if one of you wants to open up on proudest achievements first.
Yeah, I can jump in there. So just from because I'm quite nosy, it's been really great to go around some areas that I might not have seen before to have a look. We've extended our network, we've made contacts, and it's all just really positive stuff, and it's something we need to do for the environment. I'd say the biggest barriers, once you start looking at the higher levels of Leaf, like silver and gold, we do know that involves looking at infrastructure, and I'm sure we're not alone in that. We face some difficulties maybe with buildings and temperatures and things like that. But I think this is why we are providing a report to the Sustainability Board, getting buy-in at higher level, because to really embed this properly going forward, it's going to need buy-in from facilities. There's going to need to be some investment if we're going to look at replacing equipment on a regular basis. So I guess money is a big barrier, but they might have to put their money where their mouth is really to support this going forward. Martin, any thoughts from you?
Yeah, no, I think that was a really good answer. I mean, my proudest moment is just to see it work. The online tool, if this works, I'm, as we're developing it, it's great to see and to see the good experiences and the barriers. I think I'll put the one barrier I will say is about continuity for these things, because I think often good practice currently relies on the amazing will of people like Jan and Joe to do these things. And I think continuity of these things is in my mind, because sometimes there's a lot of turnover in all of our sectors. And when somebody comes and goes, how do we continue that good practice and ensure? So one thing I keep telling people who are doing amazing stuff is, if you're going to leave, just think about the legacy you leave and how that good practice stays there. Because I think that, obviously new people can come in, they can be amazing, but sometimes you can lose a lot of that momentum too. So yeah, anyways, I'll stop there, and I see Joe is back now. But sorry, one very quickly, I did want to say, Arthur had written on the chat, he had spoken about whether it addresses time management. And currently Leaf doesn't really directly address time management, maybe. But Arthur, if you had an idea on any criteria, if there's things you want to do, we're always open ears to adding more. So get in touch.
Martin, I might contact you at some stage about that. It seems very poor in HEI institutions. There's a culture of presenteeism and indifference to time management in the research I've been involved in.
Yeah, thank you for those contributions. Now, I think we do have Joe back with a secure connection. So we'll treat this as an impromptu sandwich Q&A, as we've learned to be flexible over the past 2 years. So Joe, we've got no camera, but do we have sound for you now?
I hope so. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes. Oh, hallelujah.
So we've got there in the end. So we'll return back to the presentation now and hear about Joe's experience at Edinburgh Napier, and then see if we've got any time for some more questions at the end. So Joe, thank you for persevering, really appreciate it. We'll hand over to you now.
Thank you. Can you still hear me? Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear.
Excellent. I'm just so scared I'm going to be cut short. I am now standing at all this technical stuff that I was too scared to touch 5 minutes ago. Okay, thanks for waiting for me, everybody. First of all, I'd just like to say thank you very much for inviting Edinburgh Napier University to speak today. It's a brilliant opportunity to share and network with everybody. My name is Jo Brown, and I work with Lisa McMillan and Russell Wilson as part of the technical team in the School of Applied Sciences here at Edinburgh Napier. As well as our technical duties, we work together on lab sustainability, and more recently have focused on introducing the LEAF programme to the labs in our school. So I'm here today to share our LEAF journey. But first of all, just a wee bit about Edinburgh Napier. It was previously a technical college and became a university in 1992. It was later renamed Edinburgh Napier University in 2009. It's a relatively small university with 1,500 staff and 19,500 students approximately. We have 6 schools stretching across 3 campuses. Napier has a strong history of enhancing sustainability within and beyond the university. To maintain these achievements and to develop its sustainability work further, Napier has set significant commitments within its new university strategy for 2021. To maintain these achievements and to I've just read that bit. Napier promises to achieve net zero carbon in its operations by 2030 at the latest, and will seek to minimise both wider and legacy carbon footprint, whilst also influence sustainable practices within and beyond the 3 campuses. With this in mind, we were becoming increasingly concerned with the general lack of recycling and minimal sustainability practices in our labs. Sustainability seemed to be missing in what we know to be a very high impact area, and the labs were failing to support the university's sustainable policies. If you look at Edinburgh Napier's operational carbon emissions, 38% comes from transport, 33% from electricity, 29% from gas, and 0.3% from water, and 0.1% from waste, which doesn't look very much, but we know our labs are responsible for a high proportion of these energy, water and waste figures. And it highlighted to us that if we didn't start making some positive sustainable changes in our labs, Napier might not be able to fulfill its net zero promise. Next slide, please. So we thought we'd just make a start, and we focused on a small area that would make an immediate difference. We piloted and rolled out a lab plastic recycling initiative. And actually, this has now become routine lab practice. Lab plastics used in teaching and research are decontaminated and sent for recycling through the dry mixed recycling route, which is already set up across the campus. Our waste provider is happy to receive our lab plastics and informs us that they are of good quality and actually hold value. To date, we have sent around 1,700 kilograms of lab plastics for recycling. And just to try and get a picture of this, that's equivalent to about 340 bin bags and around 40 of the big external dumpsters that are outside on wheels. From there, we've expanded to encourage and promote other positive sustainable changes in the labs. These we now know can be entered into the LEAF tool as open initiatives to support our bronze accreditation. For example, we have reset our ULT freezers to -70, and by monitoring their energy use, we have calculated and recorded significant energy and financial savings. Wherever possible, we reuse plastics and or try and use glass alternatives. So we wash and reuse cuvettes, 5 ml pipettes, plastic bijou and falcon tubes. And just as an example, one trimester a while ago, more than 2,000 5 ml pipette tips were washed and returned to stock for reuse. And that's an immediate saving of about £200, and it's reducing plastic waste. And these tips are made of robust plastic that can be reused multiple times and can also withstand autoclave. So we're also now successfully and routinely replacing plastic reagent tubes for glass wherever appropriate in all teaching classes. It's happening, it's really good. And we're also hoping to improve the sustainability of our teaching classes. So just actually, literally 2 weeks ago, 10 kilograms of plastic waste came out of a class that couldn't be recycled because of the nature of the reagents used. It's hoped that this will be reviewed soon, and a sustainable, less offensive alternative chemical can be chosen with the added benefit that it will reduce plastic waste. We have also started to use a more economical cycle on our glass washer. We're just looking at everything. So the plastics and the glass doesn't need to be on a high temperature if it's not had too much on it and it's had a bit of a soak first, possibly. 55 degrees is, and a shorter cycle is what we're starting to do now. Another one, pipette servicing. So every year we discovered Napier sets aside quite a significant budget to purchase new pipettes. And it's just been routine to make these purchases every year. However, we had a large number of redundant pipettes needing servicing and parts just sitting in bags. And these have now been reconditioned and recirculated, reducing the need for new purchasing and supporting circular economy. We also autoclave our own water and saline in glass bottles for tissue culture rather than buying in sterile plastic bottles. I took a note of a delivery one time and I thought it was a fridge freezer. It was all wrapped up, and actually what it was just a pallet with hundreds of plastic bottles of water, which just seemed wrong in every way when we can autoclave them ourselves. Also, yes, so this has been ongoing and it's taking a lot of investigation and things, but we're hoping in the future to take part in either a nitrile glove recycling scheme or possibly switch where we can, if we can get the right grade of glove, to compostable gloves that can enter the food waste system, currently leaving the campus already from canteens and the like. So yeah, so in addition to all of these changes, we've devoted a huge amount of our time to presenting our initiative and collaborating with many other institutions in the hope that we can encourage sustainable change. Now, the bottom-up thing, you can see that lab sustainability here at Napier has been initiated at technical level, at technicians level. So the bottom-up approach, and we're just slowly, gently pushing forwards and upwards, and it's been a long journey and hard to fit in alongside our regular lab duties. So it was absolutely brilliant to discover LEAF after attending a presentation a while back by Martin. It just seemed the answer to everything. So we began discussions with Martin and our management team, and after a bit of money juggling, we got funding and signed up to the programme in March of this year. It's taken us a while to familiarise ourselves with the online tool and quite a lot of deliberation and very, very welcome advice from Martin to finalise our structure. But we've now settled on 4 submissions at bronze level, covering lab areas in microbiology and biomed, teaching and research, animal and plant science, and sport, exercise and health science. And we are now in the process of documenting the sustainable changes we are making to meet the criteria, and we will submit at the end of this year. So, benefits of LEAF, there's been many. Firstly, participation in LEAF has allowed us to form a green lab group consisting of 12 technicians, the lab manager, health and safety officer and purchasing officer. And this has really helped us to share the workload, and it's encouraging wider participation and increases sustainability drive. Everybody gets excited about things. The LEAF framework gives lab accreditation, structured documentation of energy and financial savings, and sustainable impact. And for us, this allowed us to project what we're doing to senior levels, and it helps to justify the need for change and demonstrates the importance for the commitment of leadership to mainstream sustainability and mandate it across the university. That's our hope. LEAF highlights the need for whole university participation and ensures continuity and, for us, a secure future for lab sustainability at Napier. And finally, our own participation with LEAF showcases that everyone has a responsibility and anyone can have an impact. And I'd just like to leave you with a quote that I really like, which has helped us along our way. And it's good to think this way if you're trying to get started. Leaders are everywhere in an institution, and everyone's role has a leadership domain. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for that, Joe. That was really, really great to be able to hear you talk, and especially about the leadership as well, and the bottom up work that's gone on at Edinburgh Napier. That's fantastic. We have got actually still a couple more minutes of questions. This session's due to finish at 25 past, but I can see a couple more that questions have come into the chat. So Sian, if I can just ask you to unmute and ask your question to the panel, that'd be great.
Oh, hi, thanks. I was just asking about recycling the plastics. We don't recycle any lab plastics at the moment, and I really would like to learn a little bit more about how you decontaminate it and who you recycle it with, so we could look into it as well. I know like tissue culture is a really big problem for us with all the single-use plastics there.
Okay, can you still hear me? Yes. Yeah, we recycle our tissue culture plastics. We use disinfectant Chemgene. I'm sure lots of people use Chemgene at 5% for 24 hours. And we actually just recently validated that with a little sort of protocol, and we're hoping to sort of add that to our regular sort of routine, to just keep checking that we are actually getting rid of everything. So yeah, 5% Chemgene for 24 hours is what we do. And our waste provider, we've met with the contract manager several times, and we have regular contact, and we have discussed with him our methods, and they're very happy to take it. So this is just the general waste provider for the whole campus, and they just take it, and it's just in with the dry mixed recycling that goes from the canteen or other places around the campus, and they're very happy to take it. They're confident with our decontamination system.
That's great. Thank you.
Sorry, can I just ask you there, Joe, did you have any reluctance from academic staff when you implemented this, whether people were thinking, oh, I don't know if this is going to affect my research, or was there any pushback? Sorry, Sian.
No, none whatsoever. I mean, obviously, it's important to validate it, not just for the waste provider, but for everybody. And obviously, this is something that we're just recently starting. We hadn't done it before, but we were fairly confident that we followed the instructions from the disinfectant company, and we've been in contact with them, and they've given us some advice as well about reuse, which they're not supporting. But no, none really at all. And all the time, you know, all the way through, we've fed everything back up, and there's been no reluctance or anything whatsoever. So we're fairly confident that well, we are confident that it's fine. Yes, and it's mostly down to the waste provider whether or not they're confident to take it.
Okay, that's fantastic. Thanks for clarifying on that, Joe. Now we have just hit time, I'm afraid. So because we're recording these sessions, we've recorded also the video and the sound, but we've also recorded the chat as well. So if there's any other questions, we will be able to, you know, get answers to those after and host on the website. But as you can see in the chat, Martin's pointed out the Lean Network with a link in there, and as Martin said earlier, he's always available to get in touch with and chat through anything to do with the LEAF program. So I've just posted the link to the Padlet link, as we've said in all the sessions. If you have any ideas about what more the NCDC can be doing to aid the technical community, and especially with in these areas of sustainability, as is the focus of the day, please do post on there, and that will inform one of the last sessions of the day as well. And now finally, thank you to our speakers, to Martin, Jan and Joe. Really glad that we got to hear from all of you in the end. Thank you to everyone else for bearing with us and sticking with us throughout that. It was very much appreciated. We've now got a lunch break, and the next parallel sessions begin at 1:15. So thank you all for attending. I hope that was useful. It certainly was enlightening to me. Thanks again to our speakers, and we'll see you all at 1:15. Thank you very much.